Welcome to Monster Masquerade. I'm Faye.
And I'm Mint.
Today we're talking about Over the Garden Wall. It's my favorite piece of media of all time, and I'm so happy to talk about it.
Yes, so good.
Nothing has ever leveled up to it. Honestly, I know our first two episodes were our favorite movies, and mine is clearly Crimson Peak. However, this is over Crimson Peak, obviously.
We're starting off high, but this is probably going to be our coziest and also most excited episode so far. I don't even know how that's possible.
I can finally take all of this knowledge I've been gathering forever and put it to use in something other than annoying my coworkers.
We should also say, from the top, the show in general is very spoiler heavy, but I feel like with this one in particular, because I want so many people to watch it, if you have not seen Over the Garden Wall yet, watch it and come back. It'll be fine.
Yeah, please go watch it.
As always, I kind of have my pre-production backstory notes that we can go over to kick us off.
And I'm down to talk about any of the creators too, if you want to talk about them beforehand, because they are already some of my favorites before this series. So it's nice to talk about them and all their other works. But I'll let you kick it off. I snapped there. I'm full of energy now. The second we started, I'm like, let's go.
Let's go. It's Halloween. We're ready. All right. So, Over the Garden Wall is a Cartoon Network series original. It's a mini-series, the first mini-series to appear on the network. It came out in 2014. It was created by Patrick McHale, who also worked on The Misadventures of Flapjack, Adventure Time.
If you ever saw something on Cartoon Network and you're like, that's kind of creepy, probably Patrick McHale or Nick Cross. Probably. Right.
Other notable people who worked on the show, Natasha Allegri, creator of Bee and Puppy Cat, was a writer on the show. Pendleton Ward, also from Adventure Time and The Midnight Gospel, which is probably one of my favorite Netflix series. Over the Garden Wall won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Animated Program. It was inspired by classic, Americana art, so 1940s-ish.
Yeah, in the book they say they're going for classic Americana mixed with Victorian era, and they nailed it. It's that's exactly what it is.
And so tonally it's very interesting because when you approach it from an outside viewpoint, it's very typical and very fairy tale adjacent, because it is essentially about two boys who are lost in the woods and are trying to find their way home.
I remember when it aired. I remember seeing the advertisement for it on Cartoon Network before it came out. And I remember seeing the advertisement and I was just like, oh. And I set a timer. I was this is something I know I will like. It's just something I saw and was like, okay, this is the thing. And sure enough, nothing has met it, my expectations like that before.
Right.
Or ever again since I watched it. So
this would have come out in the fall of 2014. So I would have been just graduated from high school. And I do remember when they aired it, they did 2 episodes a day. And then I think it stacked up throughout the week so that by the end of it, you could just watch through the entire series. It is 10 episodes and it runs a little under 2 hours. It was originally going to be 18 episodes, but due to budgeting and time constraints, they reduced it to 10. And I think they went with the initial 18 because he didn't want to go with a full series. And was very surprised when Cartoon Network was yeah, go for it, my dude.
Yeah, because I know a lot of interviews and a lot of stuff I've seen with them. It was it was a lot of work. It's not an easy series for them to make.
Right.
Just because of just how much time they spent on it, perfecting it.
The 2 studios that worked on it weren't in the same city or state, so they had to do cross communication and stuff back and forth.
Well, they do a lot of remote stuff too with some of the voice acting, and then also I don't know where the blasting company is located, but that's the people who did primarily work on the music. They're called the Blasting Company. Everyone was all over the place, so.
And speaking of people in the show, it's also got a really good cast.
God, this cast. Oh, I cry at how perfect this cast is. It's so good.
Elijah Wood, who voices Wirt, the older brother, best known probably for Lord of the Rings.
No. Best known for Spy Kids.
Oh, Spy Kids 3. Yes, the guy. True.
That's his most notable work, definitely.
How could I?
Don't worry, Elijah Wood. I got you in your most notable work.
Shows up for 2 seconds, immediately dies. And we've never forgotten. Let's see. You've got Christopher Lloyd as the woodsman. This has been... I always forget Christopher Lloyd's last name. I want to say like Christopher Walken, which is not at all accurate. But like, could you even imagine?
It'd be a very different show.
It would. I don't know.
He would not have the same vibe. I feel like.
No, have you seen the live action Jungle Book? Voice acting isn't.
I hated him as King Louie. I'm sorry. This is not a dunk on Christopher Walken episode, but geez Louise, man. What are you doing? With my favorite Disney song, what are you doing?
Greg's voice actor is Colin Dean. Greg is the sweetest boy, and he's probably the best like child character in any series ever. His voice actor was also Tiffany in Adventure Time.
Oh yeah.
And is currently Lincoln Loud in The Loud House, which is I've heard very good things about that show.
The voice for the Beast is Samuel Raimi. For anyone who's like an opera nerd. For anyone that's listening and is an opera nerd, it's Samuel Raimi.
Not just like Sam Raimi. Not
no. Samuel Raimi. Oh yeah, he's a very famous bass singer. So.
I was trying to look up Beatrice's voice actor, and I put Beatrice Into the Woods because I keep getting Over the Garden Wall and Night in the Woods mixed up in my head.
It's Melanie Linsky,
who was in like 2.5 Men and has like had a couple of like pretty huge roles, I think.
Mm-hmm. I just love her voice too.
Yes. And then of course we would be remiss not to mention guest appearances from John Cleese and do you want to say the last one?
Tim Curry. It's Tim Curry.
Tim Curry. Yes.
I love Tim Curry. In case y'all didn't know already.
The show, just from that description, I think fits all of your criteria for good content.
Yeah. But it's just all-star cast, all-star creators, all-star everything. Like, they're so good. Everyone is so good.
So yeah, that's a very good transition into the pilot, which was released, I believe, like in 2012.
Let me see. September 9th, 2013 at the LA Shorts Fest. And then online, May 18th, 2015.
I'll mention that the pilot, you can see a lot of the roots for Over the Garden Wall in it. Oh, I just did a pun. Oh, that's
You did do a pun, because there's a lot of root vegetables in it.
A lot of things changed from the pilot. It drops us in the middle of this adventure that Greg and Wirt, two brothers, trying to find their way home. They are looking for a car or something. Well, they're looking for a goose that can like fly them home because that's Greg's big idea is that we'll find a goose and it'll take us home. They are being escorted by Beatrice, who is a blue jay, and I believe in the pilot has a different voice actor. It is still Elijah Wood and Colin Dean in the pilot, but they come across a town village of vegetable people that have their own like vegetable cars and everything, and it's kind of cute. They meet, I believe his name is John Crops. Yes, that's what it is.
Oh yeah.
Who wants to strike it big in the city and play music for the rest of his life. So they all go to the city together, and they accidentally knock down a scarecrow at some point and cause chaos, but eventually they all get away, and John Crops finds love, and it's beautiful. So there's a lot of music in Over the Garden Wall in general that is kind of just melodic. Like there are songs that have lyrics, but for the most part, it's very atmospheric. The pilot has some of my favorite songs with lyrics. Something about John's crooning is just very nice and like very nostalgic.
Sometimes, dear, I wonder why you keep away, leaving me so lonely. lonely night and day.
Okay, it doesn't have like a ton of bearing on the series as a whole, but it is like a nice little like, oh, okay. Like it's something that could very easily be adapted into the graphic novels or comic books.
Yeah, it's like they're like, here's an idea, and then it became a series.
Yeah. And so some things that changed from the original like plot to the current. So originally they made a deal with a devil and they have to restore the Tome of the Unknown because the place they are in is called the Unknown. And so they were going around trying to find pages to this like ancient book that would send them home.
Yeah, and the art book is described like as the Bible.
Yes.
Basically.
And so when they transitioned to miniseries, they dropped that plot point.
It makes more sense the way they did this series. And like, I sent you a picture earlier of like what the devil or whatever was
He's so
like,
silly.
It was not very scary. It was not very scary at all.
No. I think I prefer the beast.
Yeah, oh, definitely. But now we can work our way into the series.
Yes. Oh, I also saw on Wikipedia that Greg and Wirt were supposed to be able to transform into animals. Like in the original plot Bible, Greg was going to turn into, I think, a goose or some kind of bird. And Wirt was either going to be like a dog or a bear, and it was going to be like a recurring joke that no one could tell what animal he was.
That's great. That's pretty funny.
From the pilot, we enter into the main series.
And the first episode is called The Old Grist Mill. It opens up. You see Wirt and Greg. They're just walking along. Greg has a frog, which is really important. So he's trying to name this frog, and that is a plot point that comes up pretty often in the series. Mm-hmm. You'll see he's trying to think of a name for that frog, and it's very important to him, and I think it's so cute. Because Greg is just so good. They eventually run into a bluebird.
Yes, they meet her, and they're like, no birds shouldn't talk.
Greg, a bird's brain isn't big enough for cognizant speech.
Hey, what was that?
I mean, I'm just saying, you're weird. Like, not normal. I mean, oh my gosh, stop talking to it, Wirt.
It's just that all the Wirt-Beatrice interactions are so good. So good. They're my favorite. Mm-hmm. I love them.
We do meet the woodsman.
Yes.
And I think that is the first, like, proper introduction they have to somebody, that they have, like, a conversation with.
Yeah, they just kind of leave Beatrice. They're like, yeah, whatever. And the woodsman lets them know, like, hey, y'all are in the unknown. Beware of the beast.
Woodsman's whole deal is he has this lantern that is very important to him. And he kind of tells them, like,
everyone has a torch to burn, and this here's mine. I grind the horrid hazelwood trees into oil to keep this lantern lit. This is my lot in life. This is my burden.
So he's like, this is what I have to do. Y'all hang out here. Bye. Then Wirt is laying on the couch, and he's like reciting basically poetry.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like a boat upon a winding river, twisting towards an endless black sea. Further and further, drifting away from where I want to be, who I want to be.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I love that. I love how, like, overcomplicated, overthinking, and, like, tense Wirt is. I can relate to it. Like, I love Wirt so much. He's just so high-strung. It's so relatable. I love Wirt. I love Wirt a lot. Mm-hmm. Greg's like, well, I'm gonna go do something. Like, I'm gonna go find the beast, or I'm gonna go do something. And he ends up in a barrel because there was a turtle in there. There's a lot of turtles in this series as well.
Yes.
Yes. So he ends up in a barrel with a turtle. And then there is a giant dog appears. It's like a kind of a cute, like, cartoony scene where he's running away from the dog. The dog is like knocking everything over and destroying the mill, like absolutely destroying the mill.
Mm-hmm. It's big.
It's very big, and it's breaking everything. It's breaking everything. It gets stuck inside the mill, and then, and kind of like, it seems like an ode to Spirited Away. This like black turtle comes out of it, and it returns back to a normal looking dog.
And where is like, Greg, this is all your fault. And the woodsman's like, no, like, it's your responsibility as the older brother. Like,
But you're being a bad brother, which is kind of true.
Yeah, we got some Max vibes in here.
And you do find out from the woodsman that dog was not the beast.
Yeah.
He's
so,
like,
we
that
did
is
it.
not
We
the
got rid of
beast.
it. He kind of like assigns them their tasks for the rest of the series, pretty much. He's like, you're going to need each other to get home. And then he's just like, little one, you name that frog. And so it's just like, he knows his priorities. I think the woodsman he's probably a good dad. He's just like overbearing, maybe.
The woodsman is for sure a good dad. For sure. Yeah. He's good.
We rewatched it the other day, and you were like, man, that was so fast. I think that is the appeal of this first episode, for sure. It's like, it's quick and breezy and gives us just enough info, like lost kids, weird woods, creepy woodsmen, also monsters.
It is so fast.
He sped up this turtle, and now he's my best friend.
I'm excited to hear you talk about this episode, because it's one of my favorites.
Yes, okay. So, first big spoiler out of the way, let's just get into it. Essentially, the unknown, the place that the boys are traveling through, is like Purgatory or Purgatory adjacent.
It gets less lighthearted as we go along.
Yes, and so
of that.
So like in hindsight, rewatching the series, I think this episode is like probably the clearest indicator that they are in some kind of limbo.
Yeah.
So the woodsman tells them, try to find the nearest town. Like, I don't know, like this partnership of ours is not going to work out, like, because y'all don't trust me. So like, just try to find the nearest town. And so they do. They find Beatrice, who is stuck in a bush. Greg rescues her. And so she's like, hey, I gotta I'm sworn to you now. Like, I gotta return the favor. It's funny because, like, right off the bat, she kind of doesn't like Wirt, and so she's like, let's ditch your brother and get out of here.
Her and Wirt's interactions are golden.
I love Greg. I feel like the good thing about Greg is that, like, what separates him from other characters of his, like, type, I guess the comic relief, is that, like, everything Greg does, he is trying to be helpful, and he is trying to, like, appease his brother, pretty much.
Yeah.
He is so sweet. It's unbelievable.
I do want to say I like the part where Greg is like,
Let's small talk. My name's Greg. What's yours? Beatrice. My brother's name is Wirt. Who cares?
and Wirt just like looks over. It's so funny.
The series is so quotable. You're all going to be sick of me by the end of it. And so they come to Pottsfield, which is this like very harvesty kind of pilgrim aesthetic town. Everybody is wearing pumpkins and hay, and they're all celebrating the harvest. And they're like, oh, this must be where we can ask for help. And then things get very unsettling very quickly. Well, they step on a couple of pumpkins first, and then they enter into the dance that they're having, and they like strike up conversation. And then this line is probably like the clearest thing, because he starts talking to this pumpkin girl, which I don't know what else to call them aside from pumpkin people.
Yeah, they like pumpkin people. This one's very also heavily a nod to Tome of the Unknown, I feel like. With the pumpkin people versus like the vegetable people.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that might be a clear nod, because he's like, oh, you're all wearing costumes. And one of the older dudes is like, well, yeah, vegetables don't talk. He's like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then he's talking to this girl, and she says,
Say, aren't you a little too early?
What do you mean?
I mean, it doesn't seem like you're ready to join us just yet.
She doesn't say, you're too young, but like too early, because he's still like technically alive.
So they're like, this is off.
They disrupt the party, and the village chief, I guess, is what he would be, Enoch.
I love Enoch.
Enoch is probably the coolest design for a character, I think. Oh, yeah. Because he's just, like, super unsettling, but would feel, like, totally at home in, like, an antique shop.
It's funny you say unsettling, because he feels so welcoming to me. I just love Enoch. He feels like a spooky maypole. Like, that's what it feels like. It's just, like, he's so comfy. If I ever get a tattoo, I will get one of Enoch, for sure.
They upset the villagers, and so Enoch is like, all right, well, I guess we gotta assign you to some community service.
He tries to be all, like, scary, and he's like,
Children, it saddens me that you don't wish to stay here with us, particularly because I simply have to punish you for your transgressions.
I told you this place was bad news.
So by the order of the Pottsfield Chamber of Commerce, I find you guilty of trespassing, destruction of property, disturbing the peace, and murder.
Murder?
Oh, no, not murder.
We get another little musical montage where they're doing their community service. And so they are working in a field digging these ditches, and Beatrice is like, hey, what do you think these ditches are for? And Greg is like, oh, hey, I found a treasure. He's like, what is it? It's a skeleton. And so it's like, oh my gosh, they're having us dig our own graves. They're trying to escape because they think they're going to die. And Wirt is tasked to like distract them while they pick the lock. And then he sees them like bail and he's like, oh my gosh, they left me.
It's good. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. And then like the skeleton gets up and you realize that all the people living in Pottsfield are skeletons wearing pumpkins and hay and everything. So these people are celebrating the harvest, but also, I guess, like the return of their loved ones.
Yeah, whenever they're talking about the rocks, it's when the skeleton climbs out, and where it's like, they're all skeletons. And they're like, oh, thanks for digging up the life of the party. So, yeah, they're just digging up the skeletons to come hang out for the harvest season.
And so they get away, and Wirt is like, okay, Beatrice, I guess you helped us escape, so you're in the clear. And she's like, nah, they probably wouldn't have hurt you, so like, still honor bound.
Yeah, y'all weren't in any real danger.
Yes. And so they go on their way. I think by nature of the show, like every episode is pretty cyclical. They get to a place, misadventure, and then wander off again.
Yes. It follows the formula for a bit, and then things change. About the Tim Curry episode, I feel like things start to change.
Yeah.
That's like the last one. That's I'm so glad that the Tim Curry episode is like the tonal shift. The next one is called Schooltown Follies. This is one of my favorite songs. Not my favorite song in the series, but one of my favorite songs in it. Mm-hmm. It is very musical. This is one of the episodes that was majorly cut short, though, due to production. Okay. The song in it is very long and was actually written specifically for the voice actors of Miss Langtree. So, but they had to cut it, which is such a bummer. But they come up to this school. It is a school full of students that are animals in little outfits, and they're so cute. It's like little school uniform dogs, like a little bulldog and like a little bunny. And there's a human teacher there called Miss Langtree. Meanwhile, Beatrice and Wirt are having one of my favorite like squabbles where she's like, you just do anything anyone tells you to. And he's like,
such a pushover.
And he's like, well, I guess I am. And so then he just starts taking it literally, and he just does everything everyone tells him to. And she's like, Wirt, like she's like, please stop. And like, it's really their first interaction where it feels like they're just like bantering friends. It's so fun. They're there, and Miss Langtree makes them join class because she's like, students get to class, like you have to do things, like we're going to class now.
Young man, the bell has rung, please take your seat.
And they're like, no, we're getting out of here, right? And like Beatrice is like, we're leaving, and Wirt's like, oh no, she told me to take my seat. So, he goes and takes his seat. Greg says he's not learning, so he befriends animals outside. And they are playing a game called Two Old Cat, where he finds these cats and he holds them up and he's like, oh, I found an old cat. And then one of the animals finds a really old cat and he's like, oh no, that cat is too old. And then they put the cat down. Meanwhile, they're in the school listening to Miss Langtree sing a really
no good, dirty man of hers, Jimmy Brown.
Jimmy Brown, her man has left her. So she sings an ABC song about Jimmy Brown.
J is for the Joker, that is Jimmy B, the man who made me.
Beatrice and Wirt have like a little squabble. They're just, she's like calling him ridiculous, and then Miss Langtree stops her song and is like, young man, get in the dunce box. And he's like, okay. And so he gets in the dunce box, and Beatrice is like, why? Like, she's like,
he's already wearing a cone on his head.
Yeah, like, she's like, why are you getting in the dunce box? And it's so funny. Then outside there is a gorilla.
Yes, the school has its fair share of problems. They're low on funds, and there's Jimmy Brown's missing, and there's a wild gorilla on the loose.
A wild gorilla, and it appears they're very scared of this gorilla. So he's inside, I think, after this. They're eating, and Another good song, another great song, two great songs in this episode. Greg is like, this song's boring, and then gets her to play the piano and sings a song called Potatoes and Molasses. People on Twitter, this is early days Twitter, it's like 2014, 15 Twitter. We're getting their maple syrup, like corn, sugar, maple syrup, out of their pantries and putting it in mashed potatoes. I remember so many people being like, this is gross. And it's like, molasses is not maple syrup. Oh, no.
Yeah. I remember seeing like videos of people trying it on Tumblr and stuff.
Oh my god. I was like, are y'all dumb? Like,
so
this is
funny,
just sugar. Don't put sugar on your mashed potatoes.
Like, because her dad shows up.
Yeah. Her dad shows up and is like, taking all the instruments, and it's like, we don't have time to make music. We don't have the money for this. Like, we don't have the money for this. And he leaves, and he's like a really big dude, which I think is your favorite part of this episode. So he's a really big dude. So then they're like, we're going to go to bed. So they're laying in bed, and it's my favorite line in this episode because this interaction between Beatrice and Wirt is like literally me and one of my friends. So I just love it. She's like, when are you going to give this up, Wirt? And he's like, never. Maybe never. Maybe I'll just do this forever. And it's so funny. It's so good. He's being so stubborn. And she's like, ah.
Yes, because all the animals are sad, and Greg wants to help. And that was a big thing at the beginning of this episode. Is Beatrice is telling Greg like, oh, the world sucks, my dude. Like, kind of just got to roll with it. And his response to that is like, oh, we've got to make the world a better place then. So he's like, I'm going to help out my animal friends. And so they sneak out and they find the father like camping out in the woods. He takes out the instruments and then he takes off his coat, this ridiculously huge coat, to reveal this like absolutely scrawny man. And he's just like the illusion is so funny. I don't know why this tiny dude stepping out of this gigantic coat and using it as a tent is so funny to me. And he's like, oh, I wish we could help the animals. I thought we were doing a good thing. And then loathsome Jimmy Brown has left my daughter. And then he's like, not to mention that gorilla on the loose.
The gorilla on the loose. And then Wirt's like, okay, what's your plan? And Greg's like, let's steal his stuff. He just says, let's steal his stuff. And they
sad old man.
Yeah, they take all his stuff. But then immediately next scene, they have put together a benefit concert for the school. Yeah. So they're putting on this concert to earn money to keep the school open. They're having a jolly good time when all of a sudden a gorilla shows up.
Oh no.
The gorilla that's on the loose, and then shenanigans ensue, and then Wirt trips because he didn't tie his shoe because he refused to because Beatrice told him to tie his shoe, so he didn't. And then he trips over the gorilla, knocking its head off, and surprise, it's Jimmy Brown. He got stuck inside of the costume. He's been trying to tell people he got stuck into the costume. He had joined the circus to raise extra funds.
And he sounds exactly like Hank Hill. It's so weird.
I thought it was Mike Judge for so long, but it's not.
No, he's like, that's right. I was the gorilla. He's like, every time I tried to tell people, they got too gosh darn scared of me.
It's so funny. And that episode rounds off really nicely with Beatrice being like, tie your shoe, and then Wirt tying it. And it's just like, I love them so much. They're my favorite friendship in like any series. Like, their friendship is just so good. I know a lot of people ship them, which like, you're valid people, but for me, they're like my favorite friendship.
The third one is probably the cutest episode, like, out of all of them.
Yeah, it's so cute.
But the fourth, the next one, do you have the name of it?
It's called Songs of the Dark Lantern.
This one is probably my favorite episode.
This one has my favorite song in it, so I will stop you to mention which song it is.
Okay. So this one starts off, they are stowing away in the back of a carriage, being driven by this dude who is apparently running from the beast. He's like, the beast is upon us. Like, we have to get away. Run, the beast. And they're like, Greg, do you see the beast? And he pokes his head out. He's like, I don't see anything. That driver's nuts. And Greg is very hungry, which is like the joke for this episode. So they're getting more and more lost. And Beatrice is like, all right, well, we gotta get directions or something. They hop off of the carriage and they come across a tavern. And they go inside and try to find directions. And of course, things go awry because, of course, they do. The first thing that goes wrong is that the tavern keeper does not like bluebirds. And so Beatrice tries to introduce them, and she's like giving her best like sales pitch, like, I'm trying to help these two lovely lost boys get home. And then she just gets hit with a broom.
She whacks her.
What are you doing bringing a bird into my tavern? Don't you know that birds are bad luck?
Like, they're good luck, lady. She calls her lady. She stops. She drops the act immediately.
Beatrice is many things, but like sweet is not the leading one, probably. And the tavern lady is just like, there's so many like quotable parts from this episode specifically. She's like, good luck, bad luck. I don't need any of it. And so Beatrice is like forced to wait outside.
And on her way out, she's like, well, curse you in your tavern. And she's like, I put a curse here.
Yes, one day you'll die and I'll laugh.
So funny.
And so she has to wait like in the stable with a weird horse and leave socially awkward Wirt to like kind of diffuse the situation. They start introducing themselves to everybody because everybody in this town has like their occupation, and like that is the sole thing that defines them. And so we run down the list of like characters. So there's the tavern keeper, there's the butcher, there's the baker, there's the tailor, the highwayman, I feel like there's a couple. Oh, the master and the apprentice. And so they're like, so what are you? And he's like, I don't really know. I don't like labels. We're just very confused, which I think is fair. Meanwhile, Greg is just like having a little feast to himself.
Yeah. Well, and because while this is happening too, it's actually like the tiny little part of this episode, but it's my favorite song. It's the Highwayman. Whenever he introduces himself, they're literally all introducing themselves, and then he just goes, I'm the Highwayman. And they're like, okay.
It's so funny because it's like kind of a close up on Wirt in the tavern as they're like talking, and then it's just a super wide cut, and the highwayman looks so tiny. He's just like, I'm the highwayman.
So good. And that voice, this is how I discovered my favorite blue artist. His name is Jerome. Is it Jaron or Jerome? I actually don't know. I just call him Blind Boy, but he's Blind Boy Paxton. He's like our age, but he makes like really old sounding blues music, and he gets to sing the Highwayman song.
I'm the Highwayman. I make ends meet, just like any man. I work with my hands. If you cross my path, I'll knock you out, drag you off the road, steal your shoes from off your feet, and then Highwayman, when I make ends meet.
It's just like a blues song, and it's got the coolest piece of animation I've ever seen. Just like his movements are very like rubber bandy. It's just so good. I love that scene.
It kind of looks like a fisheye lens. Like as he gets closer, everything like rounds out and looks distorted. And so it's very cool. I did see an animation breakdown on Twitter, I think by one of the artists. It's so interesting.
I'm glad they did that too, because that's just that whole sequence is so cool. I would like to rewatch it. I'm like, man, if I was an animator, I would want to be able to make things of this caliber. It's so good.
This is also kind of like, it's the most like Dark Souls episode, because it's just like all these weirdos like laughing to themselves and like
everyone in here's their own character. Like it's a bunch of main characters in a tavern. It's so funny.
We forgot to mention Beatrice has promised to lead the boys to Adelaide of the Pasture.
The good lady of the pasture.
It's supposed to be like a helpful witch, fairy godmother type thing. And so Wirt approaches, I guess he's a toy maker. I forget what he is. He's like, oh, we're trying to get to Adelaide. And he's like, oh, it's a girl you're looking for, huh? Maybe you're not the simple-minded fool everybody takes you for. It's like, you're the young lover. It's like, what? No, no, it's not it.
Wirt's so embarrassed. He's like, no.
And they're like, well, sing us your love song. And he's like, what love song? And the butcher's like, yeah, lover, sing us your love song. And then he breaks into song, and it's not very good. It's not a good song at all.
Elijah Wood nails the like awkward voice crack.
He mentions that Greg is his half brother, and that Greg's dad is his stepdad. And so he mentions that kind of is like important to like why he is sometimes really weird about Greg. You can tell there's, I mean, like, you're a kid, you're like in high school, you're like awkward, parents get divorced, and then your mom remarries and has a kid that's weird and like won't ever leave you alone. So
Yeah.
That
makes sense. Upon hearing his song, the village tavern folk kind of finally understand, and they're like, "Oh, you're not the young lover. You're the pilgrim." He's like, "What? Like the guys who eat turkey and cranberry sauce?" And like, "Nah, you're on like a sacred journey, my dude." Like, because it's like one of my favorite parts, because they're just like adding all these descriptives to what a pilgrim is. And then the baker's like, "You're master of your own destiny." He's like super drunk or something, and I don't know what it is, but he talks funny, and it makes me laugh every time.
I really like the tavern keep's voice. Her voice is really nice.
Mm-hmm. She's like very Betty Boop-ish.
It's very Betty Boop. Even her like art style is very Betty Boop. So, but she sings a song in a bit here too, which is nice.
Yeah, and so they start telling him about the gorilla and how they fought, or how they met the woodsman, and he warned them about the beast, and like a hush falls over the tavern. The tavern keeper's like, "Oh, we know about the beast," and so this is where we get like the first like really in-depth kind of description.
Ooh, better be wise and don't believe his lies. For once your will begins to spoil, he'll turn you to a tree of oil and use you in his lantern for to burn.
And because the woodsman is in possession of the lantern, they all assume that he is the beast.
Yeah, they're like, "Wait, the woodsman is on the lantern," and she's like, "He who holds the lantern is the beast." And they're like, "Oh."
And so they're like, "Okay, so now that that's settled, can we get directions?" And then the little apprentice is like, "Oh, you don't need directions, pilgrim. You follow that compass inside your heart." He's like, "No, we need directions." And then Beatrice, who's been outside, hears the beast singing, and can also hear the sound of like chopping wood, and so goes to investigate it, because I don't think she at this point has not met the woodsman. It's like storming, and she crashes into a branch and screams, and so everybody's like, "Go rescue your friend, get out of here, like find your own destiny," all that good stuff. And so they steal a horse. He's like, "I'm going to pretend to know how to ride you." And they come across the woodsman holding the axe and the lantern, and Beatrice is knocked to the ground. And so, of course, like Work kind of assumes the worst and kicks it from his hand, and they escape. And so they are riding away on the horse, and she wakes up and she's like, "Nah, like it wasn't him. I just panicked and crashed." And she's like, "Did you get directions?" And he's like, "Yeah, we got it from Fred." She's like, "Who's Fred?" And it's the horse. The horse can talk. His name is Fred.
And she's like, "You can talk."
He says, "Nice to horse your acquaintance."
So weird.
I don't understand what that means.
Nothing.
Okay.
It means nothing. Fred is so weird.
But yeah, all the characters in this episode are just my favorite, because they are absolute caricatures of professions, and like so goofy, and all the voices are just like top notch.
They're so good. And that brings us to the next episode, which is one of my favorite. It's the first episode with John Cleese, who I also love. I don't know if we mentioned he's in this, but he is in this. I love him. I believe he's the one they had to do like remote voice acting with, because he did not live in the US. But this episode is called Mad Love, and it opens up kind of abruptly, because you just saw them talking to that horse, but whenever it opens up, they're like already at a dinner table with this old man. And again, it has to do with that, like, it might have to do with them having to cut stuff, but it works out nicely and shows like the time moves weird in Purgatory, like it's just kind of bouncing around. But nobody in the party really notices. So they're there. They're pretending to be this wealthy, eccentric man named Quincy Endicott's nephews.
That he's never heard of.
Yeah, he's never heard of them, but he just assumes they're his nephews. He's like, "Oh, okay, you must be my nephews," because they need money to take the ferry to get to Adelaide. They need to cross the river. And they're like, "How are we going to get money?" And Beatrice says, "Oh, I was thinking of just straight up stealing from him."
What? No way.
Why not? We already stole a horse.
Hey, guys.
No, we didn't. Fred's a talking horse. He can do whatever he wants.
I want to steal.
What? You guys are bonkers.
Fred is a little like kleptomaniac.
He He really is. And so
then they're going around the house looking for places to steal money from. And they're just kind of like looking. They split up, like the party splits up. So it's Greg and Fred and Endicott. They're looking around and a peacock shows up. Endicott's scared and it's like, oh, I've seen a ghost. There's been a ghost in my house and it's been scaring me and I see it. It's a beautiful lady. Like, he's like, it's a beautiful lady ghost. And I'm like, well, let's find this ghost.
Because Greg is so like, he is also sold on this. He's like, Unky Endicott, what's wrong?
And he's like, oh, he's my uncle now. So it's, like, it's really cute. But they're like looking around. Meanwhile, the horse is like knocking stuff over, trying to steal just anything he can find.
Giant Fabergé eggs and stuff.
And then Beatrice and Wirt get stuck in this like wardrobe. They get in the wardrobe and he's like, oh, looks like we have to talk to each other because they're stuck. And Beatrice is like, no, let me out.
Because they only need 2 cents. And so like that is what sells Wirt on this whole thing is like, oh, okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah, we can steal 2 cents.
And so they're going to check his pockets and then they fall in or something.
Yeah, they get stuck in there. It like won't open. Then it goes back to them looking for the ghost. They find the room that the ghost lives in. They're like, oh, this is where I see her. And it's like a totally different looking room.
This whole time Endicott is monologuing and very like Edgar Allan Poe-ish.
He's like, what if I am the ghost? What if this, like, what if I've gone mad?
And Greg is like, don't be mad, Uncle Endicott.
Yeah, and then Fred is like, what if you murdered the lady of the house? Like, he's like, you killed her. And Fred goes off the rails a bit.
Yeah.
Then it goes back to Wirt and Beatrice talking. And this is also my favorite interaction because, again, it reminds me a lot of you, my friend. Beatrice is she says that she doesn't like to wear shoes or something. Like, and he's like, oh, like little bird coats or something. It's something like that.
Oh, because it was
clothing.
Yeah, because they're talking about the coats, and she's like, oh, maybe he sewed the coins on the inside, like on the seams of the pockets instead of the actual pockets.
And he's like, well, you wear little bird coats. And she's like, no, fool, when I was a human. He's like, wait, did I know that? And so Beatrice goes on to tell him
that she threw a rock at a bluebird and then was cursed, and it cursed her and her whole entire family to become bluebirds, and she's trying to reverse that curse. So then Wirt's like, oh, I need to share something about myself too. And he's like, well, and he gets ready to tell it, and he's like amping up, and he's like, I have a crush on a girl. And that's like it, that's his whole thing. She's like, and he's like, and I whisper poetry to myself at night. And she's like, that's it? Like, she's like, Wirt, that's normal. And she's like, well, maybe not the poetry thing. But it's so funny because he's like so scared to be like, I have a crush on a girl. And then she's just like, me and my whole family are cursed to be bluebirds forever. And she's like, your whole thing is that you're cursed? And he mentions he plays the clarinet or something. Like, and she's like, okay, well, you're not that weird. And then they get out.
Yeah, they notice a breeze in the back of the wardrobe, and it like reveals to be a false back or something.
This is also a very good Wirt line. He's like, he mentions that this room looks very different because it doesn't match Endicott's Georgian sensibilities. It's more French Rococo style. And Beatrice goes, who are you? Like, she's like, what? She's like, what are you saying? But it's
like, is that not something I should know?
It's true though. It's a very different looking house. So they're like, what is this? And then they run into the whole rest of the party and this lady. And then they both faint. Endicott and this woman faint. They then talk to them, and it turns out Endicott owns a tea brand, and this woman owns a tea brand. I forget her name. What is her name? Gray. Margaret Gray. Yeah. They both own tea places, and their mansions are so huge that they connected, and they never noticed it.
And so they both assumed that each other was the ghost.
They thought they were both the ghost, which is funny because they are. But, yeah, so they're like, oh, well, we can work together. So they make Endicott and Gray tea. They employ Fred. He gets a whole outfit because the passage of time is weird. And then he gives Greg 2 pennies and says, because you have a lot of sense. And as they're walking away, Greg turns around.
We can pay for the ferry now.
Greg turns around and chunks the 2 pennies into a really deep fountain. And Work's like, what are you doing? And he goes, Endicott got me pegged all wrong. I have no sense. No sense at all.
It's honestly something a kid would say. Like, kids are weird like that. They definitely like that's something
just completely serious.
Yes, and so then they have to just go figure out how to get onto the ferry without money. After all of that, nothing came of that except for like you get to find out like Word's a nervous little boy. You already knew that, you know.
Yeah.
Beatrice and Word get to know each other better. You get to find out Beatrice is not always a bluebird. She is a person.
Right. I think okay. It's not my favorite episode in the series.
Which one?
This one. The Endicott, the Mad Love episode is not my favorite.
Oh, I like that one a lot just because of that interaction in the coat closet.
That's very good, but like all the John Cleese stuff is kind of, I don't know, because I think, okay, here's a hot take of the episode. I think John Cleese knows how to play like 2 characters very well, or like at this point in his career gets cast as like 2 types of character. And so like, because I've seen that same character like over and over and over again, I'm kind of bored. Like, I
don't know. I really like Endicott.
Like his monologues are great, but I don't know.
That is a hot take.
It feels very
heartily disagree with you.
It feels very okay, and also part of it is just like I can't help but picture the king from Shrek 2. Is that what you want me to say?
No. No. I mean, John Cleese is another character in this, so.
Yes, I like that character more. I
really like Endicott, and I like all the. I haven't got no sense at all. And like, the Wirt Beatrice character development.
Yes. I do like the the part where he's arguing with Fred, and he's like, "What are you implying, my equine companion?" It's like, "Oh, nothing. You killed the lady in the house, and you're impersonating her."
Yes.
So you're after my money? Do you know what I had to do? What these hands have had to do to get that money?
Like these dirty hands.
Dirty hands.
It's so funny. But yeah, I get it. Like, John Cleese does play like pretty much the same character all the time. But I like it. I don't think there's an episode of this series that I'm like, meh.
No, it's the one that I like always forget about. If I'm like thinking about the series, I'm like, oh, right. Okay, here's the mansion episode.
That's fair.
The next one, though, I like very much.
This one was called Lullaby in Frogland.
Yes. So we start the episode, and they are on the ferry. They have snuck on board. They're having a jolly old time. This is probably the happiest that we have seen Wirt, because he's like, we're going to get home. Everything's going to be great. But Beatrice is being like kind of mopey, and he comments on it. He's like, you're being uncharacteristically wistful. And she's like, yeah, just one more day and then you'll be gone. But yeah, they've snuck onto the ferry, which is piloted and is like entirely occupied by frogs, all dressed up in Victorian fancy garb, except for Greg and Wirt's frog, who is named George Washington in this episode. George Washington is nude, the president is naked, and it's very sad. And so Greg is like, well, that's weird. Why isn't he wearing clothes? Like, should we do something about that? Feel these cold feet. He's like, I'm not gonna. He's a frog. He's supposed to be cold. But the frog cops, I guess, frog bodyguards, are like patrolling the boat, and they know something is up. They know that there are stowaways, and Beatrice is like, oh, they're probably looking for you because you didn't pay. And Wirt is like, well, Greg threw away all of our money. Like, it's not my fault.
He's like, yeah, I think we're not going to get arrested today.
Yeah, today's not a good day to be arrested by frogs. It starts this whole chase sequence where they're being chased by the frogs. They pass by the captain of the ship, and they like both stop and salute the captain before they carry on. And then they also knock an armful of tadpoles onto the deck.
Tadpoles! Your babies!
I love that. That's so funny. I love the aesthetic of this one.
Yeah, it's very like Mr. Toad and Frog, or you know that one.
Yes.
Mr. Todd. Mr. Todd is something else.
Mr. Todd.
But they eventually escape and hide in a closet, and they put on this, like, they do the classic kid in a trench coat thing, except the frog is the head, and they've got Greg is disguised as a drum, and so they
his eyes poked through.
Yes, and so they are trying to blend in.
Word, drum me.
Okay.
Ow, 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 ow. Drummy, drummy.
I said act natural.
It is natural. I'm a drum.
And so they join the band accidentally, and then they accidentally knock out the bassoon player. All the frogs get very upset because, dog, those frogs love the bassoon.
They love the bassoon.
It is. Yes, it's very... How would you describe that music?
I mean, this whole series gives me very, like, Louisiana vibes. It's very, like, on the river, Louisiana.
I think that's probably...
That I think that is, like, where it's supposed to take place, too.
Okay, so very, like, jazz, bluesy, like...
Yeah, like, but it's cold there, so maybe it's not. But it is, like, especially this scene when they're on the riverboat.
Right,
it's very,
right. Louisiana, Mississippi type thing. In order to maintain their cover, like, you gotta play the bassoon. Where and he's like, if I do that, they'll kick us off for sure. And Beatrice is like, okay, play it. Like, you gotta. He's like, I don't even know if I can do it. He's coming up with excuses. He's like, I play clarinet. Like, the embouchure is completely different. Like, no one wants to hear me play bassoon.
I love when he says, I don't have the required embouchure for them. Like, I love him so much.
Also, side note, the guy who sings it, his name is Jack Jones. Okay. He was a big, like, jazz pop singer. He's, like, won Grammys. He sang The Race Is On, The Impossible Dream, Call Me Irresponsible. He sang the Love Boat theme, Lollipops and Roses in the 60s. So he's just, like, a famous singer.
And then, surprise, surprise, George Washington can talk and sing. Well, at least sing. He also does the narration at the beginning and end of the series.
Yes, that is him.
So he starts singing a song, and it's just very chill and very good and romantic, and all the frogs are happy.
There's the theme song, too. This is just called Over the Garden Wall.
When the lake is a mirror and the moon rides the waves to the shore, a single soul sets his voice singing, content to be slightly forlorn.
I think it is the most, like, iconic of the series, probably.
Yeah.
Just because it's a very good moment. They end their voyage on the ship. George Washington has been signed to play with the band, and so Greg is afraid that they're going to have to say goodbye. They give him a pair of socks or something as, like, his signing bonus.
Yeah.
Wirt is still very gung-ho. He's like, okay, let's go to Adelaide. And Beatrice is like, we can go in the morning. Like, it's late. She probably doesn't want to deal with us right now. And so he's like, so what? Are we just going to sleep in the mud with the frogs? And Greg is like, I call that mud.
He's so excited to sleep in the mud.
And then, like, dives into it. And so they go to sleep for the night, and Beatrice leaves. She goes to Adelaide, who is in this cottage in the middle of the pasture, as told. But you quickly find out that Beatrice was planning on betraying Greg and Wirt.
It's so sad, but you can kind of see it coming.
In order to break the curse, she promised Adelaide a child, a lost child from the woods, to live with her, help out, was her understanding, but Adelaide follows the commands of the beast, and so was going to make whatever child that Beatrice brought into her servant, and eventually pass them over to the beast.
And Adelaide is also John Cleese. But I guess it is another character type that he does normally play. But it's fine.
This one is fun. I like this one. Because Adelaide's very weird and creepy. And of course, Wirt and Greg, like, wake up and realize that Beatrice is gone. And they see her fly away and are, like, right behind her as she's like, I can't, like, I thought you just wanted someone to help mow your lawn. Like, I'm not going to give you these kids. Adelaide is like, okay, well, you promised. I guess you're going to stay as a bird. And she's like, well, what if I become your servant or whatever? And she's like, I need a strong child, not a bird. And she's like, well, cut my wings, right? And then I'm yours. Like, give me the scissors. I'll cut which seems very painful.
Yeah.
Adelaide is about to agree to it when Wirt and Greg wander into the house and realize that they were going to be betrayed. And Wirt is very upset.
Wirt is super upset.
So he's like, I thought we were friends. And so Adelaide tries to trap them, and she says she's going to stuff their brains full of cotton so that they can't think. And once their will is gone, then she'll hand them over to the beast. But she's in it for herself for a bit. She's like, I'm gonna get some mileage out of this before I hand over 2 kids.
So creepy.
But they open the window, and like Adelaide starts to not even melt. She like almost kind of combusts.
Yeah, she like disintegrates into dust.
Wirt grabs the scissors and is able to like cut himself and Greg out from the essentially spider's web of yarn that they had been trapped in. And in the chaos and the smoke, they abandon Beatrice.
I love that Beatrice is like, oh gee, she wasn't kidding.
It's not a good time. And so Adelaide straight up dies. And we end the episode with, I think, Beatrice shouting for Greg and Wirt, right?
Yeah, she's shouting for them.
It's so sad because she didn't think she was betraying them like to die. Like she thought she was just gonna like make them be trapped there forever, which is also still bad. But she was feeling bad about it when she became their friends. I love Beatrice. I'm like, oh, but they run off, and then there's the next episode. I do like this episode. Are you gonna dunk on this episode?
That's just because I was like, as I was watching, I was like, okay, I'm gonna read word for word. I was like, okay, I like this episode very much. But it is very much Wirt's rebound from Beatrice. And then I put, you can have rebound friends. It's a thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It does feel like he's like, whatever, Beatrice. And then he's like, oh, look, a cute girl.
Yes. Like Lorna is very.
It's
like,
very high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, it's so weird because he told Beatrice, he's like, well, I have a crush. And then, like, he's clearly, like, just her friend. But then whenever he's away from her,
right.
he's like, now, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, hey.
Yeah. Because I feel like...
oh, I like Lorna. She's cute. You know, he's all blushy.
Mm-hmm. Aside from, like, the very, very end of it, like, I don't think it does a ton to progress the story.
I like this episode because it's not really... I feel like it's not there to progress the story. It's there for the tonal shift. Like, this episode is where things get not... Like, the last episode starts out super bright and fun, and they're all singing. This episode, by the end of it, we're just in like the dark. Like the color palette has completely changed. Like, it's just something really creepy happens in this episode. Like if I was a kid, even I would have been scared of like the thing at the end of this episode. And then I think it just shows like, I mean, it's got as much to do with the story as like the school episode does, you know. The school episode doesn't really do much for the story, so.
Right. I think just because we are so... Like, we're over the halfway point. Like, so I don't know. I guess I kind of, like, expect it to...
I like that, though, because, like, it makes the world building so good without having to make the series super long.
Yeah.
So you get, like, a feel for where you are and, like, that things are changing. You can tell that time is passing and the seasons are changing without them being like, oh, it's cold. Like, you know, like, oh, wow, time sure has changed or something.
Right. I can get into it more from that perspective.
But they do, before they get here, they run into the woodsman. In this episode, they run into the woodsman and he's like, the beast is coming for you. Like, don't stop caring. Like, don't stop trying. You know, he's like, be careful. Like, the woodsman's coming for you. And they're like, whatever. Like, you know, like, get out of here.
Like, we already don't trust you. Like, and now you've trapped us here, kind of.
Yeah, so they run into a cottage. They come across a girl named Lorna.
Who are you? We're burglars!
No, we're not. We just needed to get out of the rain, and we thought this place was abandoned, so...
So we came here to burgle your turts.
No, it's not true.
It is true!
There's a lot of blushing going on. But she's like, you've got to hide. Auntie Whispers is coming. Which... Auntie Whispers is Tim Curry.
Lorna, my sweet child. Has anyone come here today?
Nay, Auntie, not a soul.
Then no one shall be devoured alive tonight.
Nay, I pray not, Mum.
Devoured alive?
You're a good girl, Lorna, but you deceive me.
I speak the truth, Auntie, I swear.
Deceive me not, child. I can smell them. I can smell the children in this house.
Auntie Whispers can do no wrong. This was one of Tim Curry's first roles after, like, big roles after his stroke.
Because that was 2013. I know we looked this up before.
Yeah, it was like right before. I think he's got a couple of other voice acting roles that he like recorded probably around the same time. This is like one of his first bigger roles after his stroke, so it was really nice to see him just voice acting again.
Yeah.
And then she's like, commands her to clean, and because she's like, oh, it's just the turtles, and then eats one of them. Just eats a live turtle, and then she rings the bell, and she's like, the ringing of the bell commands you to like have her do all these chores. Yes. And then she goes upstairs.
She's like, you know, I do this.
She's like, I do this for you. Then she goes upstairs to sleep. The boys come out, and they're like, that lady's awful. they're like, she's the worst. And she's like, she does it because she cares. And they're like, well, maybe if we do this housework with you, we can escape. And she's like, together. And then they sing this horribly off-key song.
Aww.
It's so off-key. It hurts my ears. It's the only song I don't listen to.
I think.
But yeah, they sing a song together. Like, it's weird. They have like a montage singing a song. Like, we're two different ships, but we're together now. And I don't know. It's very strange. But it's cute. It's cute.
While they're singing their weird montage cleaning song, Greg has gone upstairs and is trying to get the bell. And the frog, he eats the bell. Because he comes back. By the way, he doesn't take his contract. He comes back. Yes. He wanted to hang out. So he eats the bell, and Auntie Whispers wakes up, and they run downstairs. He's like, I don't know. And then she's like, in here. And they like go into this dark room and close the door. And they're like cowering by the wall. And Auntie Whispers is like, she's going to devour you. I tried to warn you. You have to get out. And they're like,
what is she talking about?
They're like, wow. And they turn around and they say,
scary. Like, actually scary looking, like, entity thing. Like glitching out.
Oh God, what is that character's name? I think it just is the Lich from Adventure Time.
Which is
the Lich King.
Yeah, because I believe Patrick McHale is the main artist behind the Lich, so it makes sense.
So it's got like glowy eyes and like a skeletal extended face.
Yeah, big long teeth.
And so it is revealed that Lorna is possessed by an evil spirit, and so like Auntie Whispers literally is like trying to protect Lorna and other people from this spirit.
She used the bell to command the spirit to keep Lorna from being wicked. And Greg has my favorite line here. He goes, "Oh, I thought the old lady was evil. It just goes to show you stuff."
It goes to show you stuff.
To show you stuff, and it's so good. Greg has so many good lines. But then they go out the window and they're running. Then Greg holds up the frog.
He's like, he ate it.
He's like, he shakes the frog and he says, "The ringing of the bell commands you." And he's like, "Become a magical tiger." And Wirt's like crying, and he's like, "Leave Lorna alone and never come back." And
stop making her do bad things.
Yeah, stop making her do bad things.
And then it leaves, and Lorna is free. Which I don't know why Auntie Whispers never thought to do this.
I don't know.
That's the one plot point that I'm like, why didn't Auntie Whispers do this? But then again, they are in Purgatory, and like things are weird. So
I think maybe. I mean, we'll get to this in a second, but it should be assumed that all evil entities are tied to the beast, maybe. And because the beast is so unstoppable, it might have just been like, oh, like, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, that's true.
Even if it's
Greg
not.
is very different. He takes different approaches to things.
Which, like, I don't want to sound like that demon or whatever it is attached to the beast, because we never get any plot points that would, like, confirm that. But if you're in that world, I think that's like a pretty safe assumption.
Probably.
But then Lorna is free, and Auntie Whispers is really sad. She's like, "Well, now you'll leave me." And she's like, "I could never leave you. Like, you helped me. Of course I'm going to stay with you." And it's really nice.
And so, like, once again, Wirt is kind of robbed of this companion that he thought he would have in the unknown.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh," but also when they're leaving, Auntie Whispers says, "Beware, my sister Adelaide."
See that, like that line is the one that I was like, okay, well, like I get it serves a point, like I don't know, it reaffirms like Wirt's feeling of betrayal.
Yeah, well,
I'm
in the
just like-
beginning too, the woodsman's like, don't give up hope. And he literally just got another companion, and then she's like, no, I'm staying with Auntie Whispers. And he's like, well, that's it. Like, he's like, whatever, I'm done. Like, this is where Wirt's just like, I'm done. We're done. I'm done. Like, he's just done with all of it, and he starts giving up. The next episode is called Babes in the Wood. And I believe Babes in the Wood is my favorite episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
I like this art style a lot.
Yes.
It's an important episode, so I don't know. It's just one of my favorites.
It is also probably the strangest episode. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, definitely.
So
it's one of those dark without being colored dark. I don't know. It's creepy.
Yeah. I think the reason for that viewpoint is because it is mainly told through Greg's perspective. So it is darker, but like he is so bright and optimistic and very sold on magical things that like it doesn't come across that way. But we start this episode and they are in a boat. They are trying to get home still, but at this point, like Wirt is just like convinced that like they're never gonna do it. And he says like as much. He's like, can we stop pretending that we're ever gonna get home?
He's given up.
And they start hearing the beast singing. They hear him singing a lot now.
Might as well happen.
And so Greg is still being his like very energetic and like he's honestly trying to help so hard, and it is just getting on Wirt's like last nerve. And so they get off this little boat with a giant fish, which just keeps popping up. I don't know what's up with this fish. I like the fish, but Greg is like, so what's the plan? It's like we're walking. And he's like, oh, okay, because you're not really like telling me anything. He's like, you know what? I'm done coming up with the plans. Like, if you want to get us home, like, you do it. Greg assumes responsibility as leader of the party because Wirt's just like, you can do whatever you want. I don't care.
He just lays down in like the snow. It started snowing kind of too.
He's like, I'm going to take a nap. Wirt is just almost completely gone. He's like out of it. He's asleep. He's given up. And before he goes to sleep, Greg says a little, I don't know, almost like a prayer, kind of. I mean,
yeah, kind of. It's a Greg prayer.
Yeah. He's like, get me home and Wirt too. And if you don't, I don't care. I'll pull down your underwear. And then he like wakes up, quote unquote, in a dreamscape that is like very nostalgic cartoon, like kind of like we mentioned earlier, Betty Boop, like Cuphead aesthetic.
Yeah, Cuphead, Bendy and the Ink Machine. They really like brought that back. So now we have something else to reference.
Yes.
Nice.
And so he wakes up in this world, and it's very fantastical and it's weird. If you're good with it, I'll kind of pass it on to you because like I don't have a ton of notes for this section. Like I think it is neat. I think it is visually striking, but I don't have a ton for it.
Yes. So basically,
this whole scene, and what I love about it is a metaphor. Like Greg here is dying. He is dying. That's what's happening here. He's basically being given a choice to like either go back or like go to heaven, or like he's given a choice, but in his own way. So like everyone in this cloud city is happy. They're letting him introduce himself, and they're all introducing themselves. There's like a really fun sequence. It's like there's a bunch of committees, and like another one comes up after like 4 of them, and Greg's like, that's enough.
Is there anybody else? And it's just like this grumpy, wrinkly dog with a storm cloud.
He's like, that's like, enough.
I have this one and Pottsville are probably like the most Flapjack-esque in terms of like creepy, cute content, like unsettlingly and cute.
If I had to rank them, I think my favorites would be like Pottsville, Babes in the Wood, and then probably Ringing Up the Bell. But Pottsville and Babes in the Wood are my 2 favorites because of that. They're like creepy, cute. They're really unsettling episodes. Like they're like the visuals are very unsettling, and it's like hard to place why. So it's like it's nice. But they're singing this intro song. They're like, hey, welcome to Cloud City, la la, you're here. And then the Old North Wind appears.
He starts to howl, puffs up, furls his brow. Now, you better take cover, lock up those doors and close the shutters. I say the old north wind.
His voice is so good. That's just like an animator from the team. Like, his voice is so good. You ever watch this for whatever reason, your voice is amazing. So he's singing that the wind is coming in, and then the cloud lady comes down. She's just the queen of the clouds. Okay. She appears and is like, you can have one wish, which is funny and important because 2 different times, like, he thought Beatrice would grant him a wish, and he thought the bell would grant him a wish, and he's always asking to be like a tiger. Which maybe is a nod to like whenever they were going to be able to turn into animals in Time of the Unknown. Because he's always asking to be a tiger. So she's like, you can get a wish. And he's like, okay, I wish to return home with Wirt. And the Queen of the Clouds here is like, oh no, Wirt is already gone. Like, he's already been claimed. He can't go because he gave up. And he's like being consumed by these branches as they speak. And so then Greg, being the best person in the world, wishes to take Wirt's place.
Because as the north wind is like terrorizing, like this snowstorm is blowing in, and they're slowly being consumed by the Edelwood branches. He whispers his wish, and she's like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah." And then he wakes up, and we see Wirt like covered in branches and snow, and Greg walks up to him. It's just so sad.
It is. You see him walk off.
You hear the beast singing. So you know it's not good. Wirt wakes up, sees him walking off, runs and falls through the ice, and is drowning. He's saved by a fishing net, but that scene is also important. But that's where that episode ends.
That is the first episode in the series to make me cry, just because of that last scene with the 2 of them. But it's definitely not the last.
No, oh my god, I still cry. I still cry. But the next episode is a flashback.
God, this one is so good.
Very good episode. It's lots of Wirt backstory, lots of Wirt being Wirt.
Yes.
So good. You want to do this one since I took most of the other one?
Yeah, I can do that. Okay. Yes. Okay, so the previous episode ends with Wirt being dragged into a hollowed out tree where Beatrice's family lives because she found him and like left him there, and she's gonna go look for Greg. So you would think, like, next logical step, we're gonna find Greg, we're gonna hang out with Beatrice for a little bit, but no. Instead, we flash back to modern times because throughout this whole thing, it never occurred to me that they might be like regular kids or anything.
Yeah, same. Because their outfits, and like, I thought it was like a fairy tale.
Yes, like, you were so swept up in the fairy tale like feel of it all. You're just like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Like, I'm not gonna ask too many questions. And then the absolute twist of it all, we are in a bedroom. It's like the 80s or something like that. It's still like kind of nostalgic. That was the only thing I couldn't tell if it was like actually modern or like slightly older.
Yeah, because Wirt's weird.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. But I will say that's the moment I knew they were like in purgatory.
Wirt is putting together a mixtape. He destroys the mixtape, then puts it back together, and then he puts together his outfit that he's been wearing for the entire series. You realize it is a Halloween costume, and he goes out into the streets. He's got a mixtape for someone named Sarah, and he is going to drop it off and confess his feelings. Or try to. That's the plan. He's already like very hesitant about it.
In his awkward Wirt way, he's going to confess his feelings with a tape.
With a tape that contains poetry and clarinet. And so he is wandering around their hometown, which, fun fact, you might not have known.
I do know. I know the exact
is the same universe as the TV show Clarence.
Yes, it's so cool.
It has like a shot-for-shot like view of the town. It is a Friday night, I'm assuming, because there's a football game going on. And so Wirt is wandering around town. He comes across Greg, who is revealed to be dressed as an elephant. That's why he's got a dang teapot on his head.
Whenever you find out he's an elephant, it's so cute. He's like,
I'm an elephant.
Thanks, old lady Daniels.
Yeah, so he runs into Greg, who has been doing yard work for old lady Daniels on Halloween night in exchange for candy. And Wirt's like, Greg, it's Halloween. You don't have to. Candy is free. And he's like, old lady Daniels says nothing in this world is free.
I love whenever he's like, thanks, old lady Daniels, and she goes, don't call me that. And he goes, yes, sir, young man.
Greg tags along and they go to the football arena stadium thing because Sarah is the mascot for their high school football team. And so she is doing her thing on the field. We don't get to see Sarah really like what she looks like at all in the series. We get to see her with like her Halloween costume later.
Yeah.
We find a group of teens, a very tall cowboy person, a rabbit girl, and what's her name? Tammy?
Yeah.
Tammy, who is just dressed like an egg. It's so good. One of the things I love about this episode, it's amazing how quickly that like you grow attached to all these characters who are just now being introduced. And just from their mannerisms and stuff, you can like so quickly put together their personalities and how the school works. It's just very good. And so they're like, "Oh, what's up? What's up? What are you doing tonight?" And Greg is like, "Oh, we're gonna give a tape to Sarah that he made." And they're like, "Ooh, he has a crush on Sarah."
What's a different Sarah?
Oh, and then they explain their costume, and she's like, "I'm an egg." Yeah, everybody knows you're an egg, Tammy.
Yeah, she goes, everybody knows you're an egg. Like so high school, but kind of not. Like it's funny. I just like whenever Greg is like, "Oh no, his Sarah is the one that's the bee," and they're like, "Ew."
It's just so funny. I love it so much. And so while Wirt is kind of explaining the situation to them, Greg steals the tape and like goes to put it in Sarah's jacket. And then the game ends, and he's like, "What'd you do with the tape?" And she's like, "Oh, I put it in Sarah's jacket." They're like, "Oh, if you want to get it back, you better hurry. She's changing in the locker room over there." And so they go, but then they get chased off by a football player who thinks they're like peeping Toms.
Hindsight, he was being real nice because they were just like outside the window, like weirdos.
He's like, "Hey, you trying to watch Sarah change or something?" They're like, "Run, Greg!" And they run off. And then Sarah comes out and he's like, "Hey, Sarah, be careful. There's some real creeps out here tonight." He's like, "Thanks, Jimmy." And his vampire girlfriend, who doesn't say a word that entire time,
stands there.
And so they go to a party and Wirt is like, "It's too late. We can't do anything. I wasn't invited." He sends Greg in and he's like, "Yeah, okay, you go in, look for Sarah. Don't tell him I'm here." And then, of course, Greg is like, "Oh, look, there's Wirt over there in the window." And so he walks in and they're like, "Oh, hey, Wirt." He's like, "Hey, guys, how's it going?"
You know, he's very obviously allowed there. Before we get into the party stuff, whenever they're going into the party, there are people discussing the baseball term, like, old cat. Like, I don't know what it means, apparently, but they're like, one old cat, two old cat, and they're talking about it. It's like just an audio in the background, but that's where Greg gets two old cat from. It's two as in the number two, not two as in you're too old. So I just think it's really cute. It's really funny. That's like one of the references that he used in Purgatory. There's another one in this that is really big that I'll point out when you get to it. Yeah, apparently it's like a baseball thing.
Clearly, Wirt has invented this whole like perceived like situation for himself.
Very relatable. That's me like to a T. I relate to Wirt so much because like I do that. So it's like very. And everyone's like, "Oh, they wouldn't want me there," and then they're all just like, "Hey," and he's like, "Oh, hi." Like that's like exactly how I feel in most situations. I'm like, no one wants me here, so.
And part of Wirt's conflict is that he either has to get the tape back or decide he's going to act on it, because if he doesn't, Jason Funderburker is going to ask out Sarah, and Jason Funderburker has got it going on.
Oh yeah, everyone loves Jason Funderburker.
Everybody loves Funderburker. So he finally catches Sarah in the kitchen of this party Which, like, Sarah is so cool. We hardly get to interact with her, but, like, even the part where she's talking before he comes into the room, she's like,
I used to be really good at ballet, but my mom wanted me to be a wrestler. Oh, Wirt, you're here.
Well, I
was just asking if you were here.
She's like cool. Like she just does everything.
mm-hmm. It's like, I love Sarah so much. Once I met Sarah, my perceived ship of Wirt and Beatrice went out the window.
You can't ship Wirt with Beatrice. Like, they're just good friends. I feel like Beatrice would be like, yeah, Sarah, you know? So it's like...
And so she's like, oh, hey, we're all going to the cemetery here in a bit to hang out and drink age-appropriate drinks. And he's like, what, you mean like juice? She's like, yeah, age-appropriate stuff. Nothing illegal. And then he's like, I don't know. And then enter Jason Funderburker.
Hey, you should come.
Hey, Sarah. Are you ready to go?
Hey, Jason Funderburker.
Oh, hey, Wirt. Let's go, Sarah.
He's so funny. It's so funny.
Because this whole time, because we've heard about Jason Funderburker as an idea, as a concept, since the Mad Love episode. And so you've had this entire time to think about who is Jason Funderburker? Who could Jason Funderburker be? And then he walks in, it's this tiny, like smaller than the small, skinny, sad old man from the school episode. And he's like, hey, Sarah, how's it going?
He's got the most nasally voice in the whole world. He's like, hey, Sarah.
It's so obvious that, like, yeah, Jason has a thing for Sarah, but, like, Sarah is obviously interested in Wirt.
Yeah, she obviously doesn't care at all about Jason. Like, she's like, okay, Jason. Or she just calls him Funderburker. She's like, okay, Funderburker.
They tolerate him.
Yeah.
And so they don't get the tape back, and they leave to go to the cemetery.
They decide to go after them, and they're gonna spy.
Yes, they're gonna spy and see what they get up to.
Greg also wants to get a frog. He wants the last frog of the season. He keeps hearing them. He mentions it a lot.
He thinks there's one more frog over by the cemetery. And so they get there, and they hear the frog. He's like, you surprised me. We're not here for Sarah or whatever. We're here for the frog. You kept your promise.
Yeah.
But they're telling ghost stories in the middle of the cemetery. Oh, we almost forgot about the cops who ruin everything. It's very...
Hey, kids, don't run on the street. Just kidding, it's Halloween.
No running in the street. Just kidding, it's Happy Halloween. Like, okay.
So funny.
It is funny.
I said I'd point this out when we got to it. In the cemetery, the headstones they are hiding behind say Margaret Gray and Quincy Endicott.
Ah!
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So you just like, that's like oh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, they at that point I was just like, they died. They died. They're about to die. Like I was like, oh no.
I didn't know that. Oh.
Yeah, they're on the headstones.
Huh. Oh my gosh. You just blew my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
live
like,
on the internet.
Like, it's like a guarantee, like, yes, that's Purgatory. It doesn't leave you hanging. If you see that, you're like, oh, okay, they're in Purgatory. Because those are characters we interacted with earlier in the series. So it's like, oh, okay.
And so they see them, they're telling ghost stories, and like they're sitting in a circle, and it could be like a seance thing, maybe eventually. But Wirt is like, okay, Greg, you go distract them, and I'll go pull the tape from her pocket. And Jason Funderburker is telling this story, and like, but he's talking about like a killer or something, and it's like he's getting closer and closer. And then he like grabs her hand and holds it for entirely too long. No. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot about the other. I just want to mention like every single one of Jason Funderburker's lines because it's so funny. Because they're like walking through the cemetery. He's like, "Hey, Sarah, do you believe in ghosts?" She's like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because there's one right behind you." Oh. She's like,
okay,
it's okay, Funderburker. He like holds her hand, and Wirt freaks out. And she's like, you can let go of my hand now. And then the girl dressed like a chicken is like, you can hold my hand, Funderburker. I don't care.
Yeah, she's like into it. It's so good. But then they notice Greg and
Work. Greg is pretending to be a headless ghost elephant, but they all recognize him because they literally just saw him at the party. They're like, oh, hey, isn't that Wirt's brother? He's like, no, I'm a ghost.
And they're like, there's Wirt.
Yeah. He's like, oh, hey, guys, I didn't see you there. And then the cops show up again. They're like, what is this? Some kind of witch's coven? Like, it's like, you're all under arrest. And so the kids like scatter and they're like, oh, wait, no, come on. It was a joke. And then
you're not under arrest.
For some reason, these cops decide to chase the children in their car in the middle of a cemetery.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah. Greg and Wirt climb this huge wall.
Yeah.
Huge.
Uh-huh.
And then here, are you going to talk about the Jason Thunderberger?
Oh, yeah, I was about
Sarah
to.
Interaction?
Because they start running from the cops and Wirt is like, Greg, where are you going? And he's like, I heard a frog over here. And so they're going and they get to the top of the fence and then they look over and the cops are like, hey, kids, like, you shouldn't be up there. You're going to get hurt. And then they look over and and Sarah has found the tape in her pocket and she pulls it out. She's like, what's this? And Jason Thunderberger's like, let's go listen to it.
Wirt's like, no.
And so he's like, well, might as well end it all here. And they jump off the opposite side of the wall that they're on. And the cops are like, no, not on that side. So they land on the other side. Wirt yells at Greg. He's like, you're always ruining my life. You and your dad. It's like, always trying to get me to join the marching band. He's like, yeah, if you join the marching band, you can hang out with Sarah more.
Yeah, he's just so nice.
He's so sweet. He's so nice. And then they hear a rumble and a train is coming. Wirt pushes Greg off of the bridge, like tackles him. So they both like go tumbling down this hill into the water.
They are definitely drowning.
Yes. The entire series up until this point has been taking place like as they are drowning.
As they're drowning. Honestly, that scene when they're falling and the music is playing.
There's an old black train a-comin', scraping along the iron. You don't need no ticket, boys, it'll take you when it's time.
Oh, it gives me chills. It's so sad.
That's my favorite song. The old black train is my favorite song from this series.
So good. It's like, oh, they're dying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, oh no. Like, oh man. But it's like one of those things that like makes this one of my favorite series.
Yes.
It's not just a bunch of nonsense. It's like they were dead.
And so if they were going to go like super, super grim dark, like edgy, like fan theory dark, I think Wirt would have woken up like in the hospital or whatever, and Greg would have just been gone. But instead, he wakes up inside of that tree with Beatrice's family. And at first thinks that Beatrice has found him, but then the bird is like, you know my daughter? And so he promises to get her back and leaves the tree to go find everybody.
And that is the last episode.
The last episode was called Into the Unknown. This one is called The Unknown. So it's like the over the garden wall is where they went, and it's very metaphorical, you know, all life and death and all that jazz.
So now we're on the final episode, folks.
We are. It gets kind of dark and it's kind of depressing.
So God, this episode is so good too. Like on these last three are just so good.
They really are.
And emotional and epic.
Yeah.
I don't use that word.
At this point, we are now seeing Beatrice. So Beatrice is flying through a snowstorm. You find out that she has left Wirt with her family. She was too embarrassed to stay with her family. She's the one who saved Wirt and left him there because she's good. I love her. And then she's looking for Greg. She's flying through the snow. She finds Greg. He's doing these tasks for the beast. So the beast is like, I guess, trying to whittle away at his will here. He's just trying to like wear him down, basically.
You have figured it out, and I thought you might give up.
Give up? I'll never give up. Just gotta wait.
It's dark, and so then Beatrice goes to find Wirt to like lead him to Greg. She runs into a tree, I think.
I think so, yeah. Because he comes across her like on the ground again.
And Wirt has the frog, and now he's got Beatrice, and they're like, okay, we gotta find Greg. Like he's gonna die right here. You know, the woodsman is also looking for them, and he comes across Greg.
What have you done?
Why, I've given you another Edelwood.
No!
He will burn nicely in the lantern.
No, I won't do this.
You've been grinding up lost souls for years.
I didn't know. I didn't know this is where the Edelwood trees came from.
And would it have mattered? Would you have just let your daughter's spirit burn out forever? Feed the lantern.
No.
I suppose after all these years, you just don't care for her anymore.
Hold your tongue or I'll remove it from your mouth. I do not speak of my daughter. She would not wish this.
He goes to free Greg from the tree. He sets down the lantern. The beast goes to make a grab for it, and then the woodsman like hucks his axe at it, and they start this huge fight that we don't get to see, but like the beast is like singing in his face the entire time as the woodsman is like just completely destroying this forest. It is so cool. Christopher Lloyd, like, he's got some acting chops that I don't think he gets to use fairly often.
Yeah, he did such a good job in this. Like, just such a good job. Like, I cared about the woodsman, especially in this episode.
Yes. And so we cut back to the three, our other three heroes, Beatrice, Wirt, and I don't think Frog has a name yet. It's about to be. Because Beatrice is like, she's apologizing, and Wirt is like, no, it's fine. And he's like, you could come with us. And, oh, you need these, right? And he has the scissors from Adelaide that he used to cut himself out of the webbing that we mentioned. And she's like, you had it the whole time? And he's like, well, yeah, I used it to escape, and then I was kind of mad at you, so yeah. And she's like, oh, you wonderful mistake of nature. And they like make up. And then that is when they come across Greg in the destroyed woods, and we don't see the woodsman or the beast anywhere.
Yeah. And Beatrice here is like, oh, geez, they're even growing inside him.
And then he spits them out and goes, nah,
it's just eating leaves. Ugh.
So sad.
Yeah, because they're trying to free him, and it's like, come on, Greg, we've got to get out of here and get home. You, me, and Jason Funderburker. And he's like, Jason Funderburker, the perfect frog name.
It really is a good frog name.
It is. And then the beast comes with the woodsman and throws him down, and it's like, all right, hey, listen, kids, I've got a deal for you. He's like, you can free your brother. In exchange, I need you to start carrying that lantern.
Yeah, I think he says he's going to put Greg inside the lantern.
Oh, yeah, he's like, it's too late, but I can save him by putting his soul into the lantern, and then all you have to do is put other people into it so that Greg can stay alive.
Yeah.
Which is what he had told the woodsman previously in regards to his daughter.
But Wirt's too smart for that.
Yes. And so Wirt almost agrees to it, and then he's like, wait, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life, like, chopping down trees to keep this lit. He's like, it's almost like it's not her soul that's in the lantern, it's yours, which is why the beast is so possessive of it. And so the woodsman, realizing this, like, I think is heartbroken in that moment.
Yeah. He got tricked.
Mm-hmm. Where it has the lantern, he's like, if you extinguish that flame, like, he dies. Is that something that you're willing to try?
Well, he does this thing where he makes it entirely dark.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he makes it like a void, and he asks where he's like, "Are you ready to experience total darkness? Like, are you prepared like to die, basically?"
Uh-huh.
And Wirt's voice cracks when he says, "Are you?" Like he goes like,
"Are you?"
And then he's like,
"Are you?"
Yeah, it's so funny.
And then he goes to extinguish it. Wirt is like, yeah, no, that's what I thought, pretty much. And so he tosses the lantern to the woodsman, and he's like, here, this is your burden. Like, Greg is mine, essentially mirroring what the woodsman told him at the beginning. He picks up Greg and they start to like walk off. And the woodsman's like, she was never in there, was she?
You see, woodsman, all who perish here will become trees for the lantern. Cut them down with your axe. Go, now!
We see the briefest of seconds what the beast actually looks like.
It's scary. It's like a bunch of faces.
Which is what the trees kind of look like too. Like they have these grotesque human faces in them because they're people. Yeah. And so he extinguishes the flame and kills the beast. I think I don't think we get to see that because we're back with Greg and.
It's most definitely the beast's soul.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then they wake up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they talk to Beatrice and they say goodbye. She's like, I have to go with my family. I have to go help them. They're like, goodbye, Beatrice. And she's like, goodbye, Wirt. And then they wake up in an ambulance.
Yeah. So they have survived. And they're being brought to the hospital. Sarah is there. And she's like, Wirt, can you hear me? Like, there to check on them. And then they get to the hospital and some...
Greg is like already up and fine.
Yeah.
And he's telling the stories about everything that happened. So they're like for sure in purgatory together. And he's like, and I was there, and Wirt was there, and Jason Thunderburger, and Jason's there. And he goes, me. And then they're like, no, Jason Thunderburger, my frog.
Our frog. Our frog? No, not your frog. And then the narration cuts in. Is like, and so the story ends, and everybody was happy about it. And you see, like, we get a brief montage of what everybody's up to afterwards, and like they're all happy. The woodsman has his daughter. Beatrice is with her family. Greg shakes the frog, and you can see the bell light up.
Wirt and Sarah are gonna go listen to the tape together.
Yes, but they're gonna build up to it.
Yeah, he's like, we can work up to this one.
Because she doesn't have a tape player.
Oh, darn.
So they're gonna listen to it at his house, but then his confidence is immediately gone because Wirt has not changed.
Nope.
He's a better brother, maybe, but like I don't know. I don't know if he's more confident about himself. Maybe.
He's a little.
But yeah, that's pretty much how it ends. I mean, there are graphic novels and comics that take place like between episodes because it is like Purgatory. Ostensibly, you can have as many stories as you want.
Yeah, I do know they said they don't want to do another series, like animated series. They said nope.
But yeah, it's nice to have this like contained thing within 10 episodes.
Yeah, it's so nice. Yeah, that's it. You see all the people. They're like, eat your worms. I love that. Beatrice's mom tells her to eat her worms, and she's like, "Mom, how are you gonna do that?"
She's like, "What are you gonna do? Turn us all into bluebirds again?"
Yeah,
it's just cute.
It is,
and then
cute.
the frog sings his song again.
Yes. And it's just a comfy show. Very dark, but it's fine. Literally almost every character, except for like the ones you meet in episode 9, every other character is dead. Like they're dead. So like they probably died forever ago.
Right. It raises a ton of questions about like the rules of the world, kind of like what does it necessitate to pass on? You have Beatrice's entire family there, and then you also have like Pottsfield, where they're like more dead, but
I feel like
kind of
since Pottsfield is so early, I feel like it's a different like zone of whatever Purgatory is, because they're skeletons. They're not like people. And and Enoch. I guess we didn't touch on this at all. You find out in that last sequence, Enoch is a black cat. Enoch is not a skeleton. Enoch is a cat.
Pops out of the giant pumpkin head.
Yeah. So Enoch is a cat. You find out at the end. So it's like very interesting, but I'm curious what your favorite episode is.
Okay, so we've come to the like interview section of the podcast where we just ask each other things.
Yeah.
I think it alternates between episode 9 and 4 because they're both like, I like 4 because of all the information that we get about the world through all of these like random side characters who are just so much fun to be around. And then episode 9, just because of the absolute twist of it all, is just so good. And I think puts everything into such a nice perspective.
Yeah, they're very good. Mine are definitely, like I said, Pottsfield. So Hard Times at the Huskin Bee, episode 2. And Babes in the Wood, episode 8. I just love those. Those are the episodes where it's like you can tell like something's going on for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I do like 9 though. Whenever you see the headstones with the names on it, that's like really cool.
That's so cool. I've got to look for that now because I'm sure there are a ton of like Easter eggs and stuff.
Oh, there's a ton, yeah. I was reading in the back of the art book that Wirt's outfit is based on an outfit that Patrick McHale wore a couple times in high school to try and have like a rock star persona. Like, there's a picture of the actual like cape and stuff in the book.
Oh, I love that. Who is your favorite like random side character or silly voice?
The Highwayman, for sure.
Highwayman's pretty good. I think it has to be like from that episode just because there are so many. I just really every single time the butcher is like, yeah, lover, sing us your love song. I just think
it's so good.
I lose my goddamn mind. Like I don't know what it is about that. It's just so funny to like everybody in that episode, but like
they're just
him
yelling at them.
Him just shouting at this kid, like, tell us all about your love. Like, do it.
Who's your favorite main character?
Oh gosh. I gotta I love Greg because of his optimism.
Yeah.
We were talking about this a little bit the other day. It's just like Gregs are just the best characters in entertainment, I guess, because you got Greg from Night in the Woods and then also this Greg.
Yeah.
I love him so much. He's so wholesome and like everything, because there are so many ways that they could have gone wrong with Greg, but the fact that he is like the most endearing character in this show, I think speaks volumes both to Colin's like acting ability and the writing.
Yeah, because he could have been annoying very easily.
Yeah.
My favorite's Wirt, hands down. I love Wirt. I would be friends with Wirt, and Wirt is relatable. Like, there are times where I relate to Wirt so hard. Like, I'm just like, man, that's me. Like, I overthink that much.
That was another thing that we did. I sent you 2 personality quizzes based on Over the Garden Wall. Do you remember which characters you got?
I think I got Beatrice and Wirt. I legitimately think I did. Or maybe did I get Lorna at any point?
We both got, so I know for the first one, I think was BuzzFeed. I got
I'm just
Beatrice.
Gonna take it right now.
And then I sent a second one and we both got Lorna.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were like, that is a weird pull for them to go.
Yeah, I don't think Lorna even has enough character development.
Oh my god.
And she kind of, she doesn't. Like, she's just like, she's possessed and then she's not. So we don't really get to know her more. I think you do in the comics.
Right.
But, like, as far as the series goes, it's like, okay, she's possessed and then she's not. She's nice. You know,
she
nice
is the rebound. Like, rebound friend. Like, that's pretty much all it is.
So it's like, yeah, okay, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be the rebound friend. Like, what? Excuse me? Personality quiz? Oh, what are you talking about?
And then I mentioned mine is probably, my favorite song is All Black Train, because that seems very good. Do you have a favorite song?
I think, again, The Highwayman.
Okay.
I like everything about The Highwayman is just like so good. So good. Otherwise, the song that the frog sings is really nice.
I think that is the thing that we have come to, like, time and time again with these things that we have talked about so far, is just like, if the character is well written and like relatable and we can see that character arc, like, I'm into it. We get that with, Greg does not change. He's still Greg, but we love him for that.
He definitely becomes more mature, I feel like, in the last episode, because he makes like a really big decision. In episode 8, he like sacrifices himself, but I feel like Greg at the beginning would have done that too, so.
But like Wirt's progress from like, I'm so annoyed I have to deal with my younger brother, to like, I am going to combat a literal demon in the woods, and also save this person who betrayed me. Like, I think that that's good.
And it's really nice too. The beast tells him what to do and he doesn't. That's good, because Because he usually does, just like people are like, do this, and he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, oh, wait. He's like, no.
Sing us your love song, sings a song.
Yeah, like immediately
Oh my
does what
gosh.
people tell him to do.
You got a point. That's good.
But the bass is like, do this. And he's like, okay. And then he like back, because he doesn't immediately say no.
Right.
He's going to do it. I think he even pointed that out. Learns to think for himself.
Poor Woodsman, though. Like, honestly.
Oh my god.
Have you read any of the?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I got some of the single issues, and then I've got what are they called? Trade paperbacks. I've got that with me right here, actually.
The Woodsman, for everybody else, like, his daughter is not taken by the Beast. The Beast, like, tries to grab her, and she loses her coat, and that's what the Woodsman finds, and he just assumes that she's gone, and he doesn't go back to their home to, like, check on her, because
he thinks she's dead.
They've lost his wife, like, recently, I feel like, and so he's in mourning, and so when his daughter is gone, or when he thinks she's gone, like, he's just completely gone too.
Yeah, there's some more Fred lore in the comics too.
What is the Fred lore?
I don't think I've read that one actually. I'm flipping through it, but there's like a whole comic about Fred.
I do have one where it's like a standalone issue where they come to this village full of like doll people, like wooden doll people, and they hire Wirt as like a babysitter. And then eventually like they replace him with a puppet version, and it's all about like, oh, Wirt, you're so good, like, please stay with us. Your brother has to go. He's too chaotic. He's causing too much trouble. It's good.
There's some good ones. I definitely suggest the comics if you haven't looked at them already. There's one with like a magical elephant tiger. It's cool. They got to like put that stuff in. Oh yeah, okay. I'm looking through. In the one with the magical elephant tiger, Greg is a duck with his outfit, and Wirt is a bear. So I'm glad they got to actually do that.
They brought it back.
They brought it back. If you ever get the comics, or if you get the vinyl, which apparently is very hard to get now, which is crazy. But if you ever get them, they do have the sheet music in them. I'm sure you can find the sheet music online as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Like in the comics right here, like in the trade paperback, in the back, it's got all of the different covers that they released, and then it's got the Adelaide Parades, sheet music, Into the Unknown, The Highwayman. It's got all the sheet music here, which is really cool.
So much. But
I do have another fun fact, real quick. I do have the For Sarah tape. The Mondo and the Blasting Company made physical versions of the tape that Wirt made for Sarah. They did 2 releases of it. They have not done another one yet. I don't know if they will. I didn't know it'd be so hard to get. I just set an alarm for when they were doing it and got it.
For my sake, I hope they do.
I know, I hope so too. I was literally looking up like, I can this, and then like, no, I cannot. I don't make that much money in a month, you know? Like, it's expensive. But it's cool because I was reading about that tape in the art book, and the poetry that is on that tape that Elijah Wood does read as Wirt, which is hilarious, was written by members of the Blasting Company when they were teenagers. So
that's so good.
It's awkward poetry and clarinet, which is cool.
So yeah, obviously for a series that, you know, runs under 2 hours, there's a lot to talk about here. So I hope we did it justice.
I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of like the meanings of everything.
Right.
Like different stuff that's metaphors for things. Like just like there's a lot to unravel with this series. There's just a lot.
So if you didn't listen to me earlier and you finish this podcast and you still haven't seen the show, like, go and watch it. Like, go do it.
There's still so much for you to see for yourself. Not to mention like the beautiful art. Like the art director is Nick Cross. Really, really good work. It's amazing. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, I think is that gonna do it for us here today?
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
You have been listening to Monster Masquerade. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to let us know somewhere on the internet and consider sharing the show with a friend. If you have a suggestion or topic you'd like to see us discuss, hop on over to our Patreon to unlock exclusive bonus content and do just that. And we'd super appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes. It's the fastest way to help the show grow. You can find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you find podcasts.